What is important to you? What is your focus emotionally on right now? Are you thinking about getting out of debt? Are you thinking about saving money and the need to build an emergency fund? Maybe you've had success. Maybe you're building a business. Maybe you're a real estate investor. Maybe you're somebody who's looking to take your life to the next level. You just found this concept and you're looking to elevate. You never, ever, ever sell life insurance as an investment. Life insurance is not an investment. Our first goal is to help you build your emergency fund. But make no mistake about it, our first obligation is to help people build their financial foundation and protect their families. The video that I talked about last time, we talked a lot about life insurance questions and really asking questions to seek more clarity so we can understand what their belief is about life insurance, what they believe about the cost, what they believe about the role, what they believe about their need, what they believe about their own emotional understanding of their own human life value and their spouse's human life value and their responsibility with their kids, and what would it actually take to replace them. And so this video, we're gonna be deeper. We're gonna go deeper. We're gonna talk about more questions, because as we talked about in the last video, which I'm gonna put the link up here if you wanna go check it out, and I would suggest if you haven't seen that, go back and watch it and then come back and watch this one. But if you haven't, if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But in this video, we're gonna take those questions, we're gonna dive deeper, and we're gonna start to talk about more of the different problems that life insurance can solve while you're alive. Because that's ultimately where I feel like some of the big value comes into this, right? Because our first and foremost objective is, I always kind of tell people, we're not trying to sell life insurance. We're trying to help people solve their problems, right? And when we're trying to help them solve their problems, it really comes down to what are you thinking about emotionally? What are you connected on? Because my goal, whenever I talk to anybody, the first assessment that I'm trying to make is what is important to you. What is your focus emotionally on right now? Are you thinking about getting out of debt? And is that your main focus? Is debt elimination? Are you thinking about saving money and the need to build an emergency fund? A lot of people do that. Or are you okay in those areas? Maybe you've had success. Maybe you're building a business. Maybe you're a real estate investor. Maybe you're somebody who's looking to take your life to the next level. You've just found this concept and you're looking to elevate and utilize a financial tool that's going to provide safe leverage, because you're getting each dollar to perform multiple functions. Maybe that's you. And so you want to learn how to invest better. And that's what you're looking to do. You're looking to grow your money. You're looking to figure out those growth strategies. And I look at it from that. We have to start from the bottom up and make sure that, all right, are they looking to eliminate debt and increase cash flow? Okay, that's one part. Then maybe they're looking to save money, and then maybe they're looking to create wealth. We can't go and speak to people about creating wealth if they're still down here and they're like, well, that sounds great, Chris, but I'd love to create wealth, but I've got $30,000 in credit card debt and I don't even have the cash flow. All my free and clear cash flow is going to pay the interest on my 22% credit cards, right? Like that's where people wind up at this point in time. And I think that's a big mistake that life insurance agents are making for people or with their clients, is they're not speaking to their clients and meeting their clients, prospects, where they are to solve the problems that they are actually dealing with. And so like anything else, we need to seek first to understand and then be understood. This cannot be about us just selling our products and solutions to them, because then it's just about us. It's about selling our thing and our process, versus literally your process should be a series of questions asking for you to understand where they are right now. What's going on in their mind? What are their concerns? Is it debt? Is it saving money? Is it creating value and creating wealth and doing all these things? Now once you have clarity on that, you can speak to them from a perspective of authority of where they're at, because once they tell you, that's also a kind of a backdoor way into giving you permission to have the conversation around that specific topic. If they're looking to eliminate debt, okay, bang, you have the door opening to be able to go through that and talk to them about what are they doing right now to eliminate debt. If they're having challenges with it, you can then go in and provide potential solutions and have a very, very emotionally connected conversation around it, which is going to elevate your positioning with them, because they're going to know that you're coming from a place of service. Now, once again, like I'm going to always say, is you can't fake it. You got to really genuinely show up for people. But that's that. So with all that said, now that we know that we want to figure out where they are, emotionally? Is it debt? Is it saving? Is it creating wealth? And obviously the life insurance part we covered last time, we want to start with life insurance, once we get that covered, now we're talking about bringing it to the next level. And so with that being said, here are some questions, some conversations that I think you can have with people to elevate your ability to connect with them, take the conversations to the next level, and make life insurance as a whole be more relevant in their mind. All right, so the first question that I ask is less of a question, it's more of a conversation. One of the things that I say all the time on this channel is that the biggest reason I see people failing with their money is that their money is not in alignment with their values and beliefs. And so when we look at it like this, one of the things that I always bring up to people when I'm meeting with them or when I'm talking with them, whether it's on the phone or in person, is I let them know that that is a big passion point for me, is helping people align their money with their values and beliefs. Now, obviously life insurance comes into the play, but the bottom line is what that does is it opens the door to have a values-based conversation. I believe every life insurance agent should have your belief statements of why you believe what you do is so important, how you can impact other people. But even more simplistically, I think when we look at it from a values and beliefs perspective, this is a great conversation to have because think about it. Most of the people in this country, especially the United States, they have their money saved in 401ks, IRAs, and that is the qualified plans. That is where maybe TSPs, 457s, 403Bs, there's all sorts of qualified plans. But the bottom line is when we're talking about almost $30 trillion sitting inside of qualified plans in this country right now, it goes to show that's where most retirement money is held at this point in time. The challenge is when you go around and you talk to people and you say, hey, my job, and when people ask, what do you do? And this is a great conversational thing, if you can slide it into any sales conversation, any meeting when you're in meeting with people, because they're going to ask you at some point in time, why do you do what you do? My answer basically is I love to help people align their money with their values and beliefs. And people go, whoa, that's different. What do you mean by that? And you could say, well, let me ask you a question. What do you believe about the government right now? Do you have a lot of long-term trust in the government? And they're going to give you an answer. What do you think about debt right now? Do you think debt is going to keep going up, or do you think the government is going to come up with a solution that's going to rein in $33 trillion of debt and a $4.5 trillion deficit, meaning our debt is going up by more than 10% per year, and with a rising inflationary environment, with the rising interest rate environment, that's putting more stress on the tax base, which leads to where do you think taxes are going? Do you think taxes are going to go up or down? We're living in a long-term, all-time low tax rate environment. Like how do you feel about all these different things? And what happens there is now we're connecting. We're not talking about life insurance. We're not even talking about their money. We're just talking about what's going on in the world. Because make no mistake about it, the world, most people don't do a really good job of staying in their own little bubble. They're assaulted by media everywhere they go. Our phones, every time I turn on this phone, I get Google feed coming across telling me about the war in Israel and Hamas and all these different things, talking about all the problems in the economy and all this stuff. So people, we're getting bombarded from every angle about what's all the problems in the world. And it's very hard to stay in our own bubble and focus on the things that we can control. So people are, since they're assaulted by all these things, they're going to be thinking about them, and they're going to be like, wow, yeah, like I honestly, they're going to go one of two ways, basically, because let's face it, we live in a pretty polarized world at this point in time. People are either going to say, you know what, I think that's a bunch of malarkey, and I think, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden are amazing, which, listen, I have my opinions. I'm not judging anybody. But I do know if somebody tells me that they believe Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton are great and Bernie Sanders is awesome, then I know that they're probably not somebody I'm going to work with. So I can save myself the time and the heartache about working with them for all this time. And, not to say I'm going to give up right away, but I'm going to certainly drill deeper. All right, if you believe that, like, what do you think about the future of taxes? What do you think about the future of debt? What do you think the prospect is, and how do you think that will impact you? Where do you think the future of our economy is going? And when you get people to really contemplate that, now you can have a conversation about the fact that all right, you just told me you think taxes are going up. You told me that you think deficits are going to get worse, that debt is going to get even more out of control. I didn't even talk about unfunded liabilities yet, right? Like all these things. So these are all concerns for you. So even though those are concerns for you, and let's say I'm talking to you like a prospect now, the challenge that I'm seeing here is that you just told me, and let's just assume this, you just told me that all your retirement is sitting in IRAs and 401ks. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a massive discorrelation between what you're doing and your values and beliefs, because you just told me that you're concerned about all these things going sideways, but did you know that everything you're doing with your money is suscepting you to the risks that you believe are going to happen in the future? And so they're going to say, whoa, no, I didn't know that. And so now what they did, and by going down this process and this conversation, you basically got them to give you permission to go down this path and have the conversation about like, okay, talk to me. How do I align my money with my values and beliefs? And that's where we start getting into this conversation. And that's where you can start talking about the different ways that life insurance can solve it. Now, one of the things I want to be really, really strong on here is that you never, ever, ever sell life insurance as an investment. Life insurance is not an investment. It doesn't have the same risk profile as an investment. You can't lose money in a whole life policy. You should never sell an IUL policy, and you cannot lose money in a whole life policy. And so if you sell whole life properly, it is never an investment. It's a savings alternative, and it is like, from that perspective, if we look at it as a savings alternative, well, then it comes into, all right, well, now we had this conversation around the economy and all this stuff, and they said, all right, what does it mean? All right, you just told me my money is in alignment with my values and beliefs. Well, what does that look like? How do you do that? How are you going to help me get my money in alignment with my values and beliefs? Well, now what I'm going to say is I'm going to say, well, you know what? I believe that financial structure is more important than chasing rates of return, high rates of return. And they're going to say, okay, tell me more. And then you're going to say something to the accord of, you know what? Like the bottom line is the market is cyclical. It goes up, it comes down, it goes up, it comes down. If you don't have your financial foundation built, you're not an investor, you're just a speculator. And it can feel really good, you could feel like you're having success, but unfortunately 1 or 2 bad years and your whole life can get derailed. You lose your job, you don't have an emergency fund, you can get derailed. Is that fair enough? And they're gonna say, yeah, probably. And so you can say, you know, do you believe that having an emergency fund is important? And they're gonna say, yeah. And listen, I'm a big believer, never ask questions that you don't know the answer to, right? Like from this perspective and from that angle, you need to research this stuff. You need to really believe in what you're doing and kind of where you're guiding and influencing these people to go. And so if I say, hey, do you believe you need an emergency fund? They're gonna say yes. And the reason I say that they're gonna say yes is because I've done this like 1,000 times. And nobody says no to that, because I think most people know that good adulting is to have an emergency fund. If you don't, it's just kind of irresponsible, right? And so most people are going to say, yes, I believe I need an emergency fund. And then you say, that's great. How much do you think people should have? And they're going to probably say 6 months, because Dave Ramsey's done a great job of teaching people that's how much they have. Now, I would argue and say more. I would say you need at least a year. I'm not going to go there yet in this conversation, because it's not about me trying to push on them my beliefs. I'm still seeking to understand where they're coming from. So you believe that you need 6 months of an emergency fund. Yes. How much of an emergency fund do you have? Not enough. Well, how much is not enough? They're going to tell you nothing. They're going to tell you 2 months, 3 months, 1 month, whatever it is, they're going to tell you. And so at the end of the day, 95% of the time, there's going to be a gap from what they have and where they want to be. And so this is great, because now you're having this conversation. All right, our first goal is to help you build your emergency fund. That is it. Because you cannot be a pure investor and actually have financial stability without an emergency fund. That is just the way it goes. And so one of the things that I do is I teach people how to build this emergency fund, but also to get each dollar that they're saving in their emergency fund to perform multiple functions, right? And when we do this, now you go down that process and they start going, oh, okay, well, where do I keep my emergency fund? Because now if you believe that you need to save an emergency fund, chances are you're married, you have kids, you have business partners, you have other things going on, you have a need for that emergency fund, you have a need for all the other benefits that come along with what we're gonna give them for an emergency fund. So the alternative now comes into the conversation. It's like, it's not life insurance compared to an investment, Because if I look and compare life insurance at a 4.5% rate of return long term compared to an investment in the S&P 500, and everybody's like, I could get 10% long term. Why would I do 4.5% instead of 10%? That's a harder conversation. I would say you need to save in the 4.5% before you can go take the 10% risk because of the fact that you need to build that foundation. But once again, harder conversation. But if we lead down the path of like, you need an emergency fund, then you go, well, where would you save that emergency fund? They're gonna say, well, a savings account, or maybe bonds, or maybe CDs, or something of that nature. But remember, emergency accounts need to be liquid. So it's probably most likely a bank. At this point in time, it's probably a high yield savings account. And so when you look at that, now it's a conversation around, all right, you could put your money in the bank, but let's look at what would it look like if you put your money in a properly designed whole life insurance contract, right? And when we look at that and we compare, yes, you're gonna have to give up a little liquidity on the short end, but look at all the benefits, the living benefits, the life insurance, all these things that you're gonna get with it. And then look at the long-term benefits about how the cash value in the whole life contract 10 years out is gonna outperform the performance in the savings account. And so now when it's like the trifecta, you get living benefits, you get a death benefit, and you get better performance, and you keep the same liquidity basically that you would have in a money market account. Like now life insurance utilized as an emergency fund becomes the biggest no-brainer. And that right there is the key. If you want to be able to like really move the needle for people and help people structure their life in a way that is in alignment with their values and beliefs, bring them peace of mind, help them have financial structure that's going to solve their needs. Remember, there are no shortcuts. The problem that I have with people selling IUL is that it's just this conversation about like replace a 401k with this. It's like get rid of investment A and put it in investment B. It's a better widget to solve your problem. The reality is it's not the case. First of all, it's not the case. IULs come with more risk than are communicated with people, but they also aren't solving the problem about financial structure, which is really what we need to heal this country from a financial perspective. All right, so once we get through that and we understand, all right, here's how much money you need saved, here's how much you need an emergency fund, now we've had the conversation about how much life insurance do you want, we could take it to the next level. We could start thinking about how much life insurance do you actually need according to the 4% rule. Now, if they don't understand the 4% rule, you need to ask them, what do you understand about the 4% rule? Could you explain to me what the 4% rule is? If they say no, you're gonna have to explain to them. The 4% rule is basically saying you could take a 4% distribution of any account value that you have without running a significant risk of running out of money during your lifetime. That said, $1 million death benefit is gonna provide $40,000 a year of income on a not a guaranteed basis, but you could roll it into pretty much as guaranteed basis as you could imagine at this point in time. So when you think about it from that perspective, the 4% rule is really giving us the ability to reverse engineer our plan to accomplish what we need from an income planning perspective. If you make $100,000 a year, you need $2.5 million to be able to replace that $100,000 of income. It's that simple. 4% of $2.5 million is $100,000 of income. If you want to make sure that your family is taken care of, you need to be able to reverse engineer that plan. A lot of times people get the $100,000 of income and they say, well, I'm going to do 10 years of income at $1 million. I'm going to get $1 million of insurance. That's going to cover my family for 10 years. But I don't know about you, but to me, that's just, once again, if I'm not gonna fight with you, if that's where your values and beliefs are, then okay. But as long as you're making an educated decision and you're understanding that you're really only taking care of your spouse and your kids for a window of time and then they're on their own, I look at it as like, as a husband, as a man, as a father, my responsibility is to make sure what I want to happen with my family is gonna happen whether I'm here to see it or not. And by getting all this insurance, the right levels, to cover the guaranteed obligations that I have for life to take care of my family, to me, that's where my values and beliefs are. And so it's just a matter of educating people how that actually works. And then for the last part, now we get into actual planning, right? Because we've talked about the savings part. We talked about, the need to maybe make more cash flow, even though we're not gonna be able to really address that in this video. Sometimes that's what they need is just more cash flow. But now we're gonna get into the retirement planning and just having clarity. I'm a big believer, anything measured improves. People need to understand where their money is. And so one of the things that I ask every single person I talk to is doing what you're currently doing. Do you know what rate of return your money needs to earn on a guaranteed basis to make sure you can retire when you want and maintain your standard of living on a guaranteed basis for the rest of your life? I got news for you. I've asked over 1,000 people that question. I think I've had one person in my life say, yes, I know the answer. And they did. And so the challenge is, you think about it, we need to know what we're saving, what our expectations for the returns are, but there are other variables that we have to take into consideration way above the returns. Inflation plays into the purchasing power of our money, which obviously dictates our lifestyle. And so there are other risks and factors that come into the equation. So do you know all these different things that come into play that are going to impact your financial strategy and what you need with all these variables on the table to live the life on a guaranteed basis that you want to live when you retire forever? And nobody knows the answer to that. So think about it. Like, to me, that's a broken system. If nobody knows the answer to that question, well, then what can we do to help them? Well, the reason I ask these 4 questions in this way is because it guides people down a process to get them to really think about, like, oh, Houston, we got a problem, right? And so that's the first question. Now, the next question is like, all right, if you don't know what rate of return you need to earn to be able to guarantee your standard of living when you retire for the rest of your life, do you know how much more money you need to save right now to actually guarantee your standard of living for the rest of your life? Nobody knows the answer to that. It's a bit of a trap question, honestly, because if they don't know the answer to the first question about what rate of return they need, I guarantee you they don't know the answer to this question. But the intent is not to trap them. The intent is to get them to think on another level, right? And so then the next question after, do you know what rate of return and do you know how much money do you need to save? The next question is like, do you know how much longer you're gonna have to work? If you hit retirement, based on what you're currently doing, do you know how much longer? If you plan on retiring at 65, when are you gonna be able to actually retire? And you know, if you hit 65 and you don't have the money, the plan that you're doing didn't get you where you wanted to go, how much longer are you gonna have to work with your current assumptions? And that question then leads to the fact that, hey, when we turn 65, I don't know about you guys, but I know plenty of people that have reached that age and are not able to work. And so what happens if your plan to be financially free and retired and financially independent didn't work by the time you're 65, and then you're medically not able to work, or you're not able to keep doing the same job, or you get laid off, or downsized in the workforce or something of that nature, and you're not able to have the income that you want to do? Do you know how much you're going to have to reduce your standard of living by? What percentage you're going to have to reduce your standard of living by when you hit retirement? And so these are all things that people need to realize, that financial efficiency and being really good with our money while we're going through our working years is one of the most important things that we can do. And the beautiful thing is, you as a life insurance agent have the ability to not just help people solve the problem to protect their families, which I think is our first and foremost obligation, but then beyond that, to take a look and say, all right, I can help people with their financial efficiency. I can help them build their emergency savings. I can help them build an opportunity fund. I can help them build their financial foundation. We're not going to get people rich. People are going to have to go out and do things on their own, whether it's through business or whether it's through real estate or whether it's through stock investing or whatever it is that they choose to do. Our job as life insurance agents is to not teach them how to go out and create massive amounts of wealth. We can only teach them how to build the foundations so they can go out and have a higher chance of success building massive amounts of wealth in other areas. Now, I do things like, I have a real estate investment fund. I have a lot of different real estate options that I plug people into. And I think you as an agent, the more you can build your network, the more you can connect people to investment opportunities, the more value you're able to add, and you can help have levels of conversations like that are elevated, which will help your business and will increase quality of business and the quality of person that you're able to serve. And so from that perspective, okay, that's fantastic, but make no mistake about it, our first obligation is to help people build their financial foundation and build and protect their families. So hopefully this series of two videos here of how to ask questions around life insurance and then having conversations, diving deeper into the different problems that life insurance solves was of value. Hopefully it added value into your practice and got you thinking about things a little bit differently. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. That way you're notified every time I launch a new video. Till next time, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. See ya.